serve me.
Hello everyone, just checking the time, because you know what time it is? It's time for another episode of Bourbon Over Headlines, where your headlines are served neat. Today, we are once again doing part of our Catpial series, number 3. And we're going down south, going to Dixie, Jackson, Mississippi. Now obviously Jackson, Mississippi, if you know anything about history, is named after Andrew Jackson. But not when he was president. It was named after him for the War of 1812, when he won the Battle of New Orleans, before he became president. It was originally called Lafleur Bluffs, after a French guy, because Lafleur is French, and we know that. Named for Andrew Jackson. The population in 1920 was 22,000. In 1930 was 48,000. It's a 10-year, that's 20,000+ a year different, 20,000 people difference, which is a lot back then. That was fueled, a lot of it was fueled by natural gas. They found some natural gas outside and inside Jackson city limits, so that brought all the people in, all the oil worker, all the natural gas workers, all the pipeline workers. Oh, before I forget, we are once again drinking Jefferson Dry. Today I mixed it with just a simple soda, so it's rye and soda. So, if anyone out there at the Jefferson Bourbon Company, the Zeller family whiskey makers, you have a fine product. One of my favorite bourbons, one of my favorite ryes. So in 1899, just to get a little bit of history of Jackson, 1899, electric streetcars were first put in, which is 1899. That's before 1900. That's before an electricity boom. Also, Jackson State University was there in 1877. Of course, recently this has become more prominent. It's an HBCU, but this is where Deion Sanders first got his starting gig. This is where his son and others first went, and then he's now coaching Colorado. So but it's been around since 1877. Okay. Now, during this time frame, the mayor was Walter A. Scott. He was mayor of Jackson from 1917 to 1945. The end of World War I all the way through the end of World War II. Interesting. Jackson, much like its stability. So to start off today, we're going to go with a mystery. We have a mystery. Someone kidnapped a nun. A nun. Why would we kidnap a nun? I don't know. Mystery surrounding the kidnapping of a nun. The nun was kidnapped. She escaped. In fact, she escaped the taxi cab. It's a taxi cab. I guess they kidnapped her, forced her to attack. She escaped, found her way back, but she couldn't identify her attackers or anything. So they're looking for the people who kidnapped the nun. They don't know a motive. They don't have anything. Where her condition was considered serious, so she was considered serious. She escaped. She was 33 years old, so in her 30s, kidnapping a nun. Who kidnaps a nun? Really? I know that there are people who don't like religion and don't like that, but it's a nun. Nuns do good, solid work. Why are we kidnapping nuns? This is the 1920s. It's not like she's doing anything. Did you want some Sacramento wine? It is prohibition, but who knows? Who knows why you kidnap a nun? I don't know. We went from kidnapping nuns to car wrecks. Who wrecked a car? Mystifies police. 3 hats found overturned near Robinson Street by police. Well, I got 1 hat. Where's the other 2 at? Mystery shrouds the identity of 3 young men who had the misfortune to turn their Ford coupe over on the gravel road from Robinson Street across from Lynch. So we don't know who did it. They just found the 3 hats. The wheels remain pointing skyward. That's So it had completely flipped over, the wheels were up. This is old school Ford. The crash was so loud that citizens on Robin Street near the scene were awakened by the noise of the falling glass. Now this is before, you know, like now when you break a window of a car, it's safety glass. It doesn't completely shatter. It sort of gets that like fine, all tiny little shreds usually. Well, this is before that. When these things shattered, they shattered like glass shatters. Like we think of me dropping a glass and shattering it. That's what we had going on here. The windshield to get out. So they shattered the glass to get out of the car. A bruise knocked down the door. The police were notified of the occurrence. Was to ascertain the damage, identify the parties who had understood were fairly badly hurt. 3 hats lost in the smash-up were all the evidence left behind. So the 3 gentlemen, guys, probably young guys, decided to leave and they left their hats behind. Now, in today's world, we probably could solve this mystery because we got hats, hats leave hairs, hats leave sweat, we could probably do DNA. But this is 1923. They don't know what DNA is. They just know there's 3 hats. Now they can go around and find every guy and see if the hat fits, but you're going to have some issues with that because there might be some guys with similar head sizes, and some people like their hats super tight. They like riding them high. Some like riding them a little lower. Like perfect. It depends on how you like your hat worn. Now, I found this interesting. So this is the 1920s. Cars are just becoming big. So, as I said, we've done a car accident, we've done traffic accidents here and other places we've done traffic accidents we've had. But, when you do a new infrastructure, when you have new cars, you have new, so this is a story where there's new traffic signals being placed at a number of dangerous streets, intersections in the city. And you're working in a satisfactory manner, directing automobile drivers to stop or slowing upon a dangerous corner. So this made me do a little research. I'm a trivia guy, as you probably have guessed with the stuff I do. The first traffic light in the United States was put in Cleveland in 1914. First traffic, that's really before cars got really big. That's Cleveland, sort of near Detroit, I can understand that, but the first traffic light, and it just spread from there. From my research, okay, the first traffic light in the state of Mississippi was in 1923 in Greenwood. So, and this article is from 1925, so it makes sense that they're spreading out in Mississippi. As cars get more and more, you get more and more traffic lights. Makes sense. Even in today's place, there's still people in cities fighting for traffic lights at certain intersections or certain points. In fact, I do know this, is that when like certain businesses come in, let's say like a Walmart or a big box store or a warehouse, let's say Amazon or something, come in, if they're off a major intersection or they're going to an intersection, usually there's a debate or a dispute of where a traffic light should be, because there should be a bunch of traffic coming in at certain times into that area, so you want to make sure a traffic light is there. That happens today. So these disputes of where to put traffic lights at an intersection that might not have been dangerous or might not have had a lot of traffic, all of a sudden you're going to have a bunch of traffic because of what was put there. That happens today. So I found that kind of interesting, that traffic lights are being put down in Mississippi, being spread through the city of Jackson 10 years after the first one was put in Cleveland. So that's a pretty good. Now I found this interesting, is so the early days of flight. So the Wright brothers, we all know the Wright brothers, 1903, first powered flight. But even before that, there were gliders. But even as powered flight, everything got better, gliders got better. And so there were motorless gliders. Design of airplanes got better. This is 1923. 4 years after this, in 1927, Lindbergh crosses the Atlantic from New York to Paris in the first solo flight and becomes like the first mega superstar. So this says the first motorless glider flight aloft for 8 hours and 40 minutes, which at that point was a record. The record today is like days. I didn't really look it up. But in 1923, to have this as the record, is impressive. So that means you were in the air for 8 hours. Planes weren't by this time, planes weren't really going 8 hours in the air. Barely. That was maybe the range of an airplane. You had a solo engine. The Spirit of St. Louis went from New York to Paris. That took, I think, took a lot of time. But that was one person in a plane. That wasn't passenger flight. And this is a solo guy. So we're getting to the point now where we understand how to keep planes in the air longer. Whether it's gliders, whether it's actual planes, we understand how to do it. And within 20 years of this, we have jets. In the 40s and 50s, late 30s, 40s, 50s, this is when we start getting cross-country trips. This is when we start getting the DC-9s, Pan Am, and all that. So from 1903 to the 40s, everything blew up. This is the Howard Hughes era and everything else. So having this in 1923, a guy who uses a glider for 8 hours, that was a big deal back then. In some cases, it'd be a big deal today. If you built a glider in your backyard and was able to fly for 8 hours, you would be impressed, wouldn't you? Probably. I just found that interesting, especially 20 years after the Wright brothers. Now, for the most obvious story of the day. Okay, so I'm going to read the headline, and you tell me if this does not speak of duh. Okay, lumberyard fire does great damage. What's in a lumberyard? Wood. Of course, if there's a fire in a place where there's a lot of wood and wood burns, that's essentially going to cause some damage. It's not a forest fire, it's a wood fire. Anyone ever had a big bonfire, put a bunch of wood on it? Yeah, that's basically what this is. It's a bonfire, but in a yard. In an actual lumber yard. A spectacular fire is under control, having left in its wake $400,000 in damage. In 1926, $400,000. That's over $1 million today. It's a lumber yard. The Sowers Benbow Lumber Company and Scoto Lumber and Supply Company were destroyed by the fire, which started near midnight Tuesday following a flash, so a lightning strike. So an outdoor lumber yard, and it got struck by lightning and burned. Well, there's a shock. Lightning starts a fire, and a lumber yard burns down. $400,000 in damage. That is funny. To me, that's just funny. What do you expect to happen? Do you not expect, oh, I'm on the lumber yard, we're completely not going to have any lightning strikes to burn this? No, never. That's the most obvious story of the day. The lumber yard catches fire and causes a lot of damage. Alright. I just think that's very interesting. So this one's interesting. Champion coyote catcher uses broken down flivver to chase and capture prey. So these are all in the Jackson, Mississippi paper. They're not all stories from Jackson, Mississippi. So before you go out and say, well, there's no coyotes, I look for headlines in the paper, not necessarily headlines from that city. If they're in the Jackson paper, they're in fair game. If I go to Colorado Springs, or if I go to Provo, Utah, if I go to Sacramento, if they're in that paper and the time I'm looking from, that's a headline that the people in that city possibly could have read at that time. That to me makes it fair game. If you think I should only do stories that are from the local paper, that are from the localities, please leave a comment. Please leave a comment below. But to me, if you pull up a paper today, you're going to have stories from all over the country in the paper. Whether it's online paper or a regular paper, you're still going to have stories from all over the country. That's how we disseminate news. Okay, so this is from Colorado Springs. It says, the world is full of champions. The men who build the best chicken house in the world just as much as a champion in his line of Dempsey or Ty Cobb or any other famous ones. Which brings us to the case of George Sinton, an angular, wind-beaten Coloradoan. Now, sounds like an author wrote this, and I love the way they write on some of these. Angular, what's it say? Angular, wind beaten. That produces an image in your mind. We don't do news articles, or if you watch the news, they don't say, we're going to interview Mr. whomever. He is an angular, wind-bitten fellow who lives in a mountain cabin. We don't do that. It's like, this is Mr. Thing, we just put a visual on it. If you had told me, I have an image, if you tell me he's angular and wind-beaten, and you put him on the screen and he looks like he hasn't been outside his house in 20 years, I'm going to be like, really? But if you tell me he's angular and wind-beaten and he's got facial features and he looks like the wind's just hit him, he's like got not necessarily sunburn, but it's dark and angular and like he's chiseled because he's outside a lot, and that's the guy you put on the screen, I'm going to be like, that guy knows what he's talking about if it's something outdoors. Which is what this is. Okay? Who lives several miles out on the plains amid the sagebrush and the mesquite. The Colorado desert, sagebrush and mesquite. Most of us think mesquite and barbecue, that's a type of wood. But he lives out among the wilderness. See, this is a description. This is how they used to write. And I love that about old articles and stuff. This is how they used to write in these papers. George Sitt has a title which there is none to question. He is the champion coyote catcher of the world. A title he established 20 years ago when the Western Plains were new. So this is from 1920 something. Yeah, 1920s. So I'm going to say early 1900s. Which he still holds by virtue of his one accomplishment. Mr. Sitt, true up-to-date standards, does coyote hunting by auto. So he hunts his coyotes by car. That's funny. Oh look, I'm driving along, there's a coyote. He has a weather-beaten, broken-down flivver, stripped of body and warranted against further breakage or insult. So I guess that's a car. A flivver's a car. It's, again, like him, it's wind-beaten, it's stripped. So basically it's a, I don't know, a Jeep? I guess you would, you ever seen those Jeeps driving down the road that don't have any doors? Just has the frame. I'm guessing that's what they're talking about. They stripped down just the frame. Pure body of a car, I guess. I don't know what a flivver is. So, I guess it's a type of car. There were so many car companies back then in the 20s and 30s that aren't around anymore. I mean, regional car companies. Studebaker, Plymouth, ton of them. All these local cars, maybe there's one in the region that was basically built for Western, that aren't there anymore. Now you have what? Tesla, Ford, Chevy, Cadillac, Buick. You have GM, which would be Chevy. GM, Ford, Dodge, Jeep, Chrysler. You have Tesla, like 5 or 6, Toyota. But I mean, like, you don't have as many as you had back then. I mean, unless you drive a Kia, you have Kia. But I was saying big car companies, and this is when you didn't have international cars. You didn't bring over Volvos and Porsches and stuff like that. This is when you had U.S. cars. You had a Ford, you had a Chevy, you had Buick, you had a Dodge, you had maybe a local car. Because bringing cars over from overseas back then was super expensive. It is today, but you can get them here because they have dealerships here. They didn't have that back then. So this is interesting. Okay. Stripped of, in it goes shooting across the plains, uphill, down, after the prey until finally he runs the animal down. He used to shoot them. That was when coyotes were plentiful and the chase could be had for the asking. In the modern age when the coyotes are less plentiful and doubly wary, he has added a new seat to the sport by carrying a lariat, which I guess is like a slingshot. And then when the beast is weary from the much chasing, running alongside and roping the beast. Oh, lariat, like a lariat. He's coping it. Yeah, a lariat's not a slingshot. Lariats, you ever seen a rodeo? That rope they swing, he puts it on, that's a lariat. So he does that now. He takes his little flivver car, runs it down, chases them, and then lariat. That's kind of cool, actually. a sport like that. Modern rodeo. He's been doing this for 30 years. So basically this guy, that's what he does. He hunts coyotes, and apparently he's the world record holder to chase and capture coyotes. He's the world record coyote catcher. World record coyote catcher. He is. He's the world record coyote catcher. And here's the thing. This is all from the 1920s. Oh, here's another one. Last story of the day. The last one. Headline: registration breaks records. So, we're in voting season, and across there's been midterm elections. We're in voting season. It seems to always we're voting. So, this is from 1926. There were 363 persons formally registered to vote in Jackson, Mississippi, a larger number than ever before in any one day. The total new registration number of people is now at 5,612. Today, tomorrow, or the final days allowed, it's estimated there'll be over 6,000 or more registered by tomorrow night when the books are closed. So, 6,000 people registered to vote. There are still towns, there are still big cities, decent sized cities, I don't want to say big cities, that even though there's 20, 30,000 people, they don't get 6,000 people to vote. You look at some of these elections for mayor or city council or whatever, it's like they won 3,000 to 3,200 to 1,400. It's like, who's voting? No one's voting. And there's like 10,000 people in the city and no one votes. So, but they're doing all this over because Mississippi, apparently, they don't like to drink in Mississippi. Or I shouldn't say, they love to drink, they just don't like to do it legally. Because Mississippi had prohibition, a state prohibition. Now, federal prohibition was 1920 to 1933. That was the national prohibition, that was the 18th Amendment. Also in 1920, passed the 19th Amendment, which was women's right to vote, which is interesting. I always found that interesting that we did prohibition and the women's right to vote in the same year. And a lot of women's groups were based in the temperance movement, which was against alcohol. Always found that a little coincidental. But Mississippi started prohibition in 1907, and it formally ended state prohibition in 1966. So you could drink anywhere else but Mississippi. Now, ironically, it got the nickname as the wettest state because it had a lot of stills, it had a lot of illegal alcohol flowing through until 1966. So it was called in a lot of places the wettest state, even though it had prohibition in 1966. So, found that kind of funny. Now, it is interesting that in 1966. So, 2 world wars. So you couldn't drink legally. If you're a military person coming back home from World War II, you still couldn't legally drink. Like, man, I fought the Germans, I killed a bunch of Nazis. I need a drink. Oh, nope, can't do it. You have to go downtown. You have to go you have to go out in the woods. So, now, I don't know how many of you know this, but NASCAR, the National Association of Stock Car Racing. I think that's what it's called. National Association Stock Car Auto Racing. Okay, NASCAR. The reason why they're called stock cars, okay, is when the people who first started doing NASCAR was formed from a bunch of essentially bootleggers. Okay, it would be people who got together in their regular stock cars, maybe with a slightly bigger engine than normal, but they weren't super modified. They didn't have like special things on the side, special spoilers. They were stock cars, and they would use these cars that were faster to outrun the cops and stuff. So they formed together and they would get together and they would start racing them. Probably a lot of people from Mississippi, because they had prohibition from 1907 to 1966. So I guarantee you there's a lot of people outrunning cops. But I explain why Mississippi, I don't know, Carolinas, everybody, that's how stock car racing formed, was mostly the southern states. Ever heard of the Dukes of Hazzard? Dukes of Hazzard, outrunning the cops, delivering moonshine. That's how NASCAR formed. F1 didn't form that way. IndyCar didn't form that way. This is the only, that's why it's called stock car racing, because they were stock cars. You might have put a bigger engine in it, but the cars were stock. tune it differently, whatever. That's why it's called the National Association of Stock Car Auto Racing, because they're stock cars. They used to be cars you could actually buy. Now they're not, so they should rename the thing. So they rename it? No. That's like saying, well, there's no one named Tiffany that runs the Tiffany Corporation, but we should rename it because no one runs Tiffany. We can't name it Tiffany anymore. No, name it NASCAR because that's what happens. Now, with all that being said, I said leave a comment leave comments, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Make sure you subscribe. Not only to my channel, Bourbon Over Headlines, where your headlines are sort of neat, but also to my amazing wife's channels. She's got two. She's got Moondog Tarot and the Divine 222. So they're both tarot channels. If you want to go find out if you're gonna have good fortune, bad fortune, what moons in what planet, what sign is compatible to your love life. Maybe you'll figure out if you can outrun the cops. Maybe she'll tell you if you're an Aries, you're better suited to outrun cops when you're doing illegal alcohol. I don't know. Tune in and find out. But like, subscribe, comment, hit that bell. Let me know what capital city you want to do next, or what, not super big city, not like New York or Boston, but what decent size American city do you want me to do next? From what state? Or give me a state. Give me a state in the comments below. Give me a state you want me to do something from next. So remember, everybody, let's be neat. Until next time, goodbye.